Let me go check YouTube to see if we're getting audio.
It's always helpful.
We usually have it muted because I can just look. It's like, okay, the video's good. I'm not gonna unmute it to get the weird reverb. Now I have to check. We usually have it muted because I can. Oh, we're good.
Okay. All right.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Reef.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop up your head.
And welcome to the American Reed Factory Podcast. This is Nathan.
And this is Colin.
We have a big, exciting show for you tonight. We're going to talk about a book. We don't have any movie to talk about, so we're just going to talk about a book.
Oh man, I can't. If you want, I've seen the movie before. If you want to just get it over with.
We can wait.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Let's see. You have things you need to say about Iron Giant. The world must know the travesties of Iron Giant.
It was a fine movie, but we can hit it next week when everyone's here. And energy levels will be low because it's going to be 90 plus degrees all week. So I'll be good and tired. Nice thing is I haven't had to mow my lawn since I've been on vacation.
The grass, summer killed the grass.
Well, there's weird like weed things that grow, but no grass, and that's fine because I don't care. I used to water it and did care, but then it got so expensive to water your grass. It's like, oh, okay. So
Just get a, what are those things? Rock garden. Yeah.
yeah, just make my whole yard like an Arizona Zen garden. Just
Yeah.
those weird patterns in it.
Chase off skateboarders. You're gonna hurt yourself and sue me.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. So it's summer. It's high summer. Got about 6 more weeks of this, and then it'll start getting cold again. I hope.
No.
Unless it just continues forever.
No, I'll just go until about October, and then like on Halloween, it'll be suddenly it's like, oh, I guess it's getting cold out.
Sometimes that happens here. Sometimes it's like you go.
Yeah,
August,
you got lake stuff, so yeah.
it's September. It's like it'll be 80 during the day, but like 35 at night. Well, we're kind of in that weird cycle now because it's like, was it 52 last night? Then the daytime it gets up to 90.
So we got like it's been like several years where we won't get snow till like end of January. Like maybe it will snow, but it'll be gone by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then, but then it'll be like, December 20th, and it's like shorts weather. It's like it's a nice 50 degrees out with no breeze.
Yeah, you get that sometimes. It's weird. I've been in my garage a lot working on the Liberator. I'm surprised all the weird animals that are out at night because I have that big fan running, and sometimes I'll look up and something will look back. Like a herd of raccoons. We have skunks and then coyotes. You see them just walking down the street. Coyote.
Sup, brother?
Yeah. Other creatures of the night. You know it's a coyote because they're not like a dog where they've been trained that they kind of walk down the sidewalks. This thing's walking down the middle of the street with something in its mouth. Like, yep, that's a coyote, which is I didn't realize till I listened to some show about someone, a wildlife expert, is like, those are just wolves. Those are just the small. Says all canines are basically wolves.
Selective breeding.
And he said,
We only have cute dogs because we thought they were cute and we fed dogs, and then then somehow the dog DNA learned that, oh, the cuter we are, the more we stay alive.
not a threat to these things. They'll give us food. We won't have to hunt. Bailey saw her first rabbits this year when she was out back. They're all, because we got like 20 rabbits in the yard. They just hang out. Oh, she takes off a running after him too. She'll stop though if you yell. My other dog Molly wouldn't, because Molly killed one once. It was literally, she grabbed it because she cornered it at the fence. She grabbed it, put it in her mouth, and did that weird dog head flip thing.
Yeah.
And
Snap its neck.
She did that like 5 times. Well, all of a sudden, all its fur came off the spot. And the kids were out back, and they were like 4 at the time. I was like, okay, let's go inside. It's like, what's the dog doing? Oh, she's just playing. And I have to go out there and hose all the blood off of her at the fence and go find what was left of the rabbit corpse. He was happy though, wagging her tail, looking at me like, wasn't that great? Yes. I mean, I was okay with it, but the kids might.
Just do that to the robber, Hoodie.
Yeah. Well, she hated people anyway. People came to the door, she'd flip out. Not so much Bailey. But it was funny to see this little schnauzer. She's got very long legs, but just desperately running after these rabbits. It's like, I don't think you're going to catch them unless you attack them flank-wise and they don't go the right direction. But
Well, that's when it gets sad, when it's like the ones that can get are the babies. It's like, oh god.
and the dog acts like, oh, free nuggets. Chew these things down. That's when you realize it's like, oh, they're just horrible killing machines. Can't wait to tear something up and want you to like, come join me.
You want some of this?
Yeah, eat that one to death with a stick, or use your weird arm things to crush it. It's like, we could do this together. This would be fun, and then we can eat it. Yeah,
If we get to live one more day.
yeah. But yeah, like I said, when you're in the garage shooting paint at 3 in the morning, you see some weird shit going on. It's like, oh yeah, there's woods, deep, thick woods all around me. So that shit just comes out of the woods to where things smell good, and it's like, let's find something to eat. Like, because we've had cats and dogs kill here before. See the notice go up where the DNR or somebody will put something out, like, it's always coyotes. It's like, be on the lookout. Don't leave your pets outside unattended, because something will eat them. And then there's the neighborhood cats are all over. There's people that live here that just let their cats just run around all night. Like I said, you'll look up and something will look back. It's like, oh, okay.
You look into the darkness, and then the darkness looks into you.
And then sometimes neighbors walk by, people that work odd shifts, and I'm sitting out there with like a big gas mask on, and they're like, I wonder what he's doing. What's he making?
I always have a vague nightmare of just like red eyes opening in the darkness and then just like coming at you, and then you never know what happens and you wake up from the nightmare.
That would be a fucked up thing. That's why I sleep with goggles on. So as soon as I wake up, you just hear them. Remember in the movies they used to have a power-up sound? I don't think they really do that.
No.
Yeah, you turn them on.
Yeah, Splinter Cell. Ding.
Yeah.
And then you can always see the green glow of the goggles. Like,
Yeah.
if you can see it, so can the enemy. It's like, that's a gameplay thing. Don't worry. If you were completely dark and you were in the dark, you wouldn't see your character. Fuck it. It's okay. It works.
I remember something weird I learned about, because I like lasers on guns just because it's a helpful sighting technique. But one of the instructors in one of our classes was dead against them. He's like, okay, we're just going to shoot a whole bunch, and then I'm going to fill the room with smoke, or the room's going to fill with smoke, and watch this. And somebody had a gun on it, and he took it. And it does show exactly where it's coming from. Especially if there's a lot of smoke in the room. It's like, oh, yeah, that's coming from, I can see clearly where that laser's coming from. But then that question, like, what kind of world are you living in, dude? Where it's like, you have to, I want them to know. It's like, hey, I'm pointing a gun at you. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that was always, because there's different settings on a PIC 15 where it's like, just when you have your infrared goggles, well, it's night vision goggles, but you can see infrared lights with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, there's different settings where it's a solid beam,
Mm-hmm.
and then where it's just a dot. It's like, you just see where the dot is. So
Yeah.
so it's like alternating the projection so it doesn't show up as a straight line and thus revealing your location.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
But
getting
it's still, but then it's strobes. So then you can also, like, if you have night vision goggles on, you can see the strobing.
yeah. That's a technology that hasn't really gotten any cheaper.
The one that always gets me is in movies where, you know, like, let's say somebody has night vision goggles on, and, you know, and then somebody turns on the lights, and they're like, ah, like you're looking at a video screen. It's not gouging your eyes out. The screen just goes white.
Yeah, there's there's all kinds of shit like that. I mean, it's still the biggest one, and I still see it to this day, even though sound suppressors are so common on guns now, they're almost like not even mentionable. Where the guy's still like the assassin shows up, and it's like, it's like, there's nothing that works that way.
Except for a blow dart gun.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I guess it's theoretically possible to spend a lot of money and have like really, you know, subsonic ammunition and stuff. But then you're talking about something so big, it's not concealable. It's like, here's my 2-liter pop bottle plastic weapon.
Well, then at that point, you also need something that doesn't like reciprocate. Like it's only like drops the hammer. That's it. Like and no movement.
Yeah,
Like
you need it because of the slipping of the metal.
yeah, because even like in a really well done silencer, like you can hear that shit like from 50 feet away, just slapping.
like slapping 2 pieces of bronze together.
Yeah.
But they still do it in movies. Just, and I understand.
It's the same sound effect too, and plus
Yeah.
it's something that you know they've incorrectly put into everyone's mind, so everybody just knows like, oh, that's the thing. He has a silencer. He killed the guy.
Yeah, I understand there's a certain art element to it, but still, it's like, yeah, let's come up with a different weapon.
And you know, sometimes it's probably just like quick and easy editing. It's like, why are you gonna have the editor waste at 2 hours to get this right when you can just move on?
Yeah, just we're not making a gun documentary. The only movie that really worked in for me, where it didn't take me out of it, even though I knew it was nonsense, but it was scary, was No Country for Old Men. It's
Yeah.
like, that doesn't exist, but boy, if it did. That gun was just a charnel house. Literally blew that one guy's arm off, and he just, but the maniacal way that he did it was so just obsessive and automatic. It's like, oh, I know that gun's not real, but wow, that's a scary gun nonetheless. Because you always see pistols, shotgun, or silence, but this guy just like, yeah, just put something on a shotgun. Let's make it quiet. And then I'm just going to basically walk up to people at point blank range and just unload on them. So it worked in that movie. It worked in the book too. That
I mean,
book-
they've made stuff like that, but it's not as effective as it's portrayed in the
no,
movie.
no. Even in the book, it was just kind of written as like there was some Cormac McCarthy does like weird research, and that book was, I forget when it was written, but it was set in the early '80s. So it kind of was in that tech family, and yeah, he went and talked to people that like knew all about stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, it's conceivable you could do this and that, and he just wrote it into a book as if, yeah, this guy has this because he's weird death, and it's like, I'm going to give him weird weapons. He's going to use like a captive bolt gun. He's going to use a silent shotgun. He's got a Silence Tech 9 too, which doesn't really show up in the story, just at long distance. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is supposed to imply that he some kind of like special forces guy from Vietnam, or well, they never really say what he is, but he's
No.
just force of death.
Because he's like weirdly foreign, but not. Because like
Yeah.
you know he's a foreigner, but he's also like he doesn't sound like he's a foreigner. He sounds like somebody was like kept in a shed their entire life and like taught
Yeah.
English through like a TV that's off in the distance.
Yeah, he was in the book. He was sort of, what did they say? Because he had the same weird name. His name was Anton Chigurh, which you can't pin a nationality to that. It's like, is he from Europe? Is he from? Yeah. Is he? But he also spoke Spanish
Yeah.
fluent, but didn't come up in the movie. But in the book, when he'd say things to people, he would speak in Spanish. but the way he said it, they would immediately like jump to what he said. So whatever he was saying in Spanish was equally as frightening, or how he said it. But, yeah, a lot of Cormac McCarthy books have weird, like, because there was the other books he wrote had elements of murder, mayhem, and technology that like may or may not exist, but it really worked for the story. So I think Blood Meridian had a lot of like Old West like just murder tech in it. Like you could somebody's head in a bear trap and shit. It's like what?
Well, I saw the latest Demolition Ranch video, and he got out all his Kel-Tec weapons. You ever seen their stuff?
I'm familiar with the name.
Their stuff always looks, as far as I know, it's all well done, and it's all like fairly inexpensive for what they're doing, but it also just looks super cheap because of the way they make very bricky polymer in their stuff. But all their stuff has like
a lot of plastic and stamped metal and stuff.
yeah, but like
Realistic.
they make a lot of like weird designs. Like they make this like 9mm carbine that just like folds in half until it's
yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
And they have a handgun. I think it's like a 33 something. It's called 33 because it's a 22 long rifle pistol that's quad stacked.
Okay.
So it has 33 22 long rifle in its magazine. And then they have a 22 mag one that's just 30. So that's another quad stack magazine. And then they got that double barrel shotgun where it's like it's single barrel double feed tube.
Okay.
So you can put like 18 or 25 rounds in a shotgun.
Yes, that's a weird. There's a couple companies doing that.
And of course they're out of Florida.
Of course.
But you look at the prices on their stuff, and it's like that's lower than Glock, and as far as I know, they're well made. But like it also seems like you can hardly buy them anywhere. They have a weird demand, but like only so much they can produce.
Yeah, in real life, I've only seen because I thought that Kel-Tec when I did see that pistol. No, I'm looking at it. I did see it in a store once, and I asked the guys like, "Is that like an FN 5 and 7?" He's like, no, that's a Kel-Tec. He goes, it just takes 22 Hornets. I was like, oh, okay. So because it looks kind of like a big, the FN 5 and 7 that shoots a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was one of those. But that's the only one I've ever seen in real life.
Yeah, they kind of
doing with them.
Huh? Oh, he was just what was he doing? Oh, he had there was a up armored Humvee at like the local like whatever army base that the glass was fogging over, so they like it was completely useless to them, and so he got a hold of it, and so he was like he took out his Kel-Tec collection to see how at one point will a bullet penetrate this. And it basically took like a 50 cal to get through it.
Oh, they're using that like 10-layer Molytech bulletproof glass where you build it into a casement, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of little sheets, and once the adhesive starts to fog, it's useless.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, it takes a lot to get through that shit.
He did get through it with his. He had like a 308. They have like a Kel-Tec has like a bullpup kind of thing, and they have a 308, and but like it didn't go through on the first one, and this is after he'd already shot it a bunch of times. But like he basically unloaded the clip, and then like at some point like a 308 got through. But
Yeah. That's assuming the people driving it would just be sitting there and not shoot. You're not going to get those opportunities. Yeah, some of that. I've seen people that obtain that military. What did these guys do? They got a window out of an up armored Humvee, and they use a water knife. And they're like, let's see if a water knife we can cut cool shapes out of this. And they were able to, because of course it's a water knife, and it just went right through it.
What's a water? Is it just like a water jet or something?
Yeah, it's like a water jet that shoots at 60,000 psi or something. You can cut through metal with it all day long. You use that when you want to finish something and you don't want burrs.
Okay.
And also, you're not using deadly chemicals and you're not creating smoke, and it'll cut through anything. Just how long you got. It takes a while. But yeah, they were cutting through that. But at one point, they were cutting something out, and the water got between some of the laminated sheets, and so like inside it cracked, but on the outside it looked normal. But you could, and then when they showed the cross section, it was like 10 thick glass sheets with adhesive between them. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is how this stuff is made. And
Yeah, when you like break one layer, there'd be like a gooey thing underneath. So I'm guessing that's the adhesive.
yeah, that stuff gets the sun, the ultraviolet rays destroy it eventually, and it's so heavy. It's like it takes a lot of bulletproof glasses. That's only in James Bond movies where it's really thin and the bullets just bounce off of it. In the real world, that energy gets deposited. I've never played around with it.
I think his previous video, he did a less than lethal video that was kind of interesting.
They have the beanbag rounds and the
No, because he
rounds.
had like a guy on a channel that was guest starring, and so they were doing it to each other.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they probably weren't using like hold still. They have the water hammer.
Yeah, there was it's like a backpack that just shoots like a fist of water at you.
They work. They're very bulky though, but they work.
It's like meant for it was created for firefighters for like certain to extinguish certain fires, where it's just like send a puff of water that way and then they'll knock it out. But then also use it for riot control.
You know, water is amazing stuff under pressure. Very good at transferring energy.
And then just a regular taser, of course. They had pies for no reason because they had like a little wheel that they're rolling it to see who gets what. And I think like the first 5 selections were all pies.
Or just hit in the face with a pie.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Have a little goof, and then there's like 5 pies in a row. Because like in between every one was pie
Oh, okay.
on the little Wheel of Fortune wheel. They had a net gun. That was kind of interesting. One that was it was like a bolo shooter. It's like this little thing. Kind of looks like a taser, and it just like shoots this wire out, and it goes wide, and like as soon as it hits you, it just wraps around real fast and has hooks on it too, and it grabs you.
Yep. Border Patrol uses stuff like that.
And then they had of course the pepper rounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, those pepper rounds get pretty nasty.
Yeah.
My favorite was the liquid bullet. It's just a crowd control irritant, and but it looked like a fire extinguisher with a gun on the top of it. I mean, I know someone who has it, and it literally would spray. Oh, I mean, like very effectively at 50 to 75 feet. It's still a solid stream, and you could unscrew the bottle real quick and change up. Really, it was like really coarse threads, so you get it off and get it on real fast. It's like, where the fuck are they using this? He got it from a cop. So, wow. I still want to know what happened to those things that were using microwaves. They look like big radar dishes on the back of trucks. They were crowd dispersant. They actually had them on the news. And because the reporter stood near one, and they're like, "Okay, are you ready?" And as soon as they turned it on, he immediately jumped out of the way. Like, what'd you feel? He goes, "I felt like I was engulfed in flames for a second." Yeah, that's what it's supposed to. But he had no physical, like it just does something to your nervous system where it makes you oil and pain. But you don't hear about him anymore. So maybe they found out there was a side effect.
I like there was this recent.
Something that cost $1 billion. And they're like, nope.
There was this thing recently where somebody was trying to hypothesize about what a Tyrannosaurus Rex would sound like.
Yeah.
And it was, it wouldn't be like what it is in Jurassic Park. Something about like, birds and shit like that and how vocal systems work, and then but how it actually but their idea of it is almost weirdly more frightening.
Yeah.
Because it's not loud. It's just a bass that reverberates through your body.
Yeah, it's bird song at 300 megahertz.
You're just like, you'll just like feel like an uneasiness in your chest as things vibrate, and you'll know something is near to try and kill you. But you won't hear it.
Infrasound. Well, that's like the what was the weird thing that they had? I forget it. I lost it. I was gonna say something, but I can't think of what it was.
More or less than lethal stuff.
Oh yeah, they've had. Yeah, I mean they've played around with all kinds. I like that goo. They were gonna shoot out, or shoot it at your legs, and you couldn't move. It's like, well, that sounds pretty good. It's like, what if it gets in their mouth though? Oh, they'll suffocate. Okay, we can't use it. There's always the one thing that can. That's why I'm surprised. Like, I've never heard of taser fatalities. I know they've happened. That's in someone that's already compromised in some way.
Yeah, or like have a heart attack, like that was the
impetus for it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I forget what is less than lethal the new term, or they have another term where it's like, where basically it implies like if you misuse this, it could be lethal.
Yeah, what is that term? I can't think of it. There's less than lethal and there's dispersant, which is like a fire hose, essentially. They've never really come up with great ways to do it. I mean, there are great ways, but there's no way to force a human being to do something they don't want to do. Where you're going to inflict pain or injury, where fatality is not a. There's a lot of crowd stuff is just you don't want a stampede to occur.
Yeah.
That's why the guys like with the riot shields walk slowly and stuff, and they walk in a formation. So, but they want you to know there is an avenue of escape, just not us. That's essentially a Roman phalanx, what they're doing. And then those get crazy, though, in places where people start chucking Molotovs into the crowd. It's like how those and some of those cops will just stand there. They'll just let it explode around the shield. Then the guys will come in and hold them above them so it doesn't get over. It's like, oh, this is fucked up. Some of those Hong Kong riots got pretty wild.
Yeah.
Just
for what we know.
Yeah, what we've seen. Well, I like how some people were there protesting, and like the students were protesting, and then the lulls in the protest, they'd be doing homework and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Gotta get to this cram school.
Yeah. Like I'm here participating in an anti-government riot, but I got to get this math. This guy had like a compass out. Stuff.
I need to get this government certificate that says I'm educated.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's crowd control. Good luck.
I recently, so I was investigating more anime, and there's an anime that's like it's created a bunch of memes, and I've seen it before, just in bits, called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
You ever heard of Fist of the North Star?
Yes, I just heard.
That's the one where like the guy will like punch people and then their heads explode.
Yeah.
So it's like it vaguely kind of looks like that, but more like Baroque, if I'm using that term right. Like the way it looks is like almost like painterly in a weird way.
Oh, okay.
The show's about like fighting, but it's like I've seen stuff from it before, and it just looked things look weird, and there's lots of fights that happen, but like as soon as it started, I had no idea like it takes place in like 1888, which I didn't know that. There's like some vampire shit going on. I mean, it says JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. I guess I should anticipate some weird shit happening. And then it's really, and then like JoJo himself is like this weirdly like an upbeat guy. And he gets sort of like a stepbrother because his dad was saved by this guy who was a criminal the guy was just there to rob his dad after their carousel crashed, or their wagon.
Okay.
And then he just basically happened to save the guy while he was trying to rob him.
Oh, okay.
And so he, out of debt, the dad offers him like, hey, here's this thing in case you ever need something, like I'll pay that. So as the it's like 14 years later or whatever, and
Was it set in Japan in the 1800s or?
I don't know. I think it takes place in Europe,
Okay.
but I really don't know. Or maybe it's in England. I think it's in England because I think there's a part where they're playing fucking rugby.
Oh, okay.
So like the criminal, the guy was just there to rob him, the thief, he has a son, and they don't really like get along, but like as he's dying, he hands him his note. It's like, go take this guy's money. So like that son goes there and basically pretends to be like, I'm the greatest son in the world, while Jojo kind of gets he's secretly trying to vindictively destroy Jojo's like self-esteem, erode the family relationship and all this stuff for really no good reason. So I had no idea to expect this kind of animosity out of the show. It's I don't know. I only watched like the first episode, but it was completely not what I was expecting for a Japanese animation.
JoJo's Weird Adventure.
Because I know they made a fighting game out of it, so I usually make fighting games out of things that take place in modern times. Sometimes there's not, but it takes place in modern times. But yeah, this is like your pre-1900s fisticuffs fighting, and I'm sure vampires and shit.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Guys doing this
But with an anime flair.
sounds pretty weird. What's it called again?
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Okay.
But it has a bunch of memes on it because like there's like a particular song it uses. Like they'll always have a cliffhanger at the end of the episode, and people will like use that in like YouTube videos or memes and stuff where it'll like just as something's about to happen, it'll freeze frame. It'll say to be continued, and it's like dun 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 dun. That's the JoJo. Like I've seen that like everywhere. It's dead now, but it used to be a
Yeah.
pretty consistent meme.
I enjoyed a lot of the Chernobyl TV show memes. And I guess they did an AMA on Reddit, and they were asking that Craig Mazin. Actually, they asked a lot of questions that we would ask, and but yeah, they were like, "What do you think of the memes?" He's like, "Oh, I think it's great. 'Cause it means that people are thinking about what I did, and even if they're having fun with it, like they're still thinking about the work and people." And he goes, "That's all I wanted." And then someone straight up asked him, "Is like, your writing credits are weird, dude. How did you write these terrible fucking movies and shows and then come up with this?" And he's like, "I ask myself that sometimes." I forget what it was, but it was like, it's like I'm a different person when I was doing this. Because he was talking about writing for those other movies, and he said, "Oh, it's terrible because there's no plot, there's no characters, it's just joke. And he goes, "It's not fun to make those." But
Yeah, because like I'll have to bring up his writing credits, but a lot of it was sequels to comedies, and comedy sequels are traditionally terrible because all the studio wants is do the same thing but just turn it up to 11.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what he said.
So like so basically he's tasked like just write the last movie, but just put it in a different location and amp everything up, and then tell the same jokes because we want people to remember that time you liked that joke in the first movie. Here it is again.
See if you'll like it again, or at least give us $20. We don't care if you like it or not. Just money. So yeah, that was.
I like the Hangover stuff make kind of sense because there's kind of a nastiness to that movie, and sort of and like I guess sort of a visual flair that most comedies didn't have.
Yeah.
And that stuff increased throughout the series, but the movies got progressively worse despite that.
Yeah, it's just those writing credits in particular with the guy that did this. I mean, the fact it's like, oh, other people were thinking about this too, and they just straight up ask him like, "Do you steal somebody's identity?" I only got through the first third of it. So.
But yeah, also like it's just him having to compile true events together in a compelling fashion.
Yeah, I mean, he said he knew what story he wanted to tell. Like, there was no fear when he started. It's like, I don't have to do world building and shit here. That's already done. I just got to figure out whose story can I tell and make this interesting to laymen. And he said, because I didn't know anything about nuclear engineering, and it's not a passion of mine, so I had to find out. But he had it drawn out, but it's like because they were talking back and forth, and they were like, when did you start researching this to actually do the work? He said, 2015 is when all the groundwork started compiling, and like, oh wow, okay, so that's quite a long time to balance all that together. And they were, and another thing he said, it's kind of the last thing I read, was it was people that were producing it and funding it were pretty hands off. They weren't like, there wasn't like, we got to take a meeting and listen to some ideas. So he said the writing part of it and the creating the show was pretty linear. Like, everyone kind of had the same vision, which really helps, and you can tell that there wasn't a lot of, like, it didn't change into a musical halfway through or something like that. So yeah.
Although I would watch Chernobyl the musical.
Yeah, I've heard people now that's of like.
Why is there graphite on the roof?
I don't know if there's been a Chernobyl movie. But I've heard about people like coming up with weird ideas for Chernobyl franchises and just kind of that, what do they call that, like low disaster porn?
Yeah.
Because that was way more successful than they thought it would be. They knew it would be good, but it's like they were amazed.
I think they were helped by it being in the middle of Game of Thrones.
Yes, they were.
And they were like in the middle of the ups and downs and people's disappointment of Game of Thrones, and like, HBO had this other thing just like ready to go. It's like, hey, we're not fucking up everything.
Well, HBO just basically, they did a lot more marketing and distribution than they did hands-on production. They gave them some money.
Yeah, because it was really a BBC Sky production rather than.
Yeah.
Or no, it's not. Wait, Sky's different from BBC,
Sky
right?
TV, yeah, that's
Sky.
their own. Sky TV's the non-government TV.
Yeah.
Ugly capitalists. But that's yeah, it's been, everyone's been kind of astonished, but like you said, no one knows what was it, the subject matter or the timing? Because I mean, it's to me, it's incredibly compelling and has been most of my adult life. So it's like, oh, this is a weird thing. This is a weird sandwich that came together for Nathan, but for everyone else on the internet, just to be all like all hands on deck with memes and jokes, and it pops up everywhere, not just on just the 3 Reddit forums or something. It's like, oh, this is in the cultural zeitgeist, as they say.
Well, we delve into that Cold War era stuff pretty heavily, and like with the internet, you just like, hey, what happened at Chernobyl, and you just like end up on 10 different websites with like 20 different unfathomable stories. Like, did that actually happen?
Yeah. Yes, this was real. Believe it. Oh, and then there's like, well, there's always been an industry around Chernobyl fiction, and I think what brought that into mainstream America was one of the Call of Duty games that took place where you were shooting the guy.
Yeah, it's Call of Duty 4.
Yeah, that like, oh yeah, this thing is real. It's still there, and this happened, and then of course you have the whole Stalker franchise, which is
and then Metro later on.
Yeah. And then what's?
I mean, I don't know, like Metro's more here because of the video games. Their novels don't seem to be. I think some of them are translated here, but I don't think the novels have been that well received.
Some of them, but it's like he said. There's some, we were talking about it once because he read them, because he's a really big fan of the Metro games and some of the novels, and well, he really is a huge fan of Fallout.
Yeah,
all those games, and it all ties in with stuff here. And then he got into Metro, which is kind of Russian version of that, and But yes, a lot of it's lost in translation. Where it's like, what's this? Because one of the Metro novels is set in America. One was excited, like, oh, they're going out into the larger world, but it was basically a weird cowboys and Indians train story and apocalypse. And because it's so it was like, yeah, he read some of them. He's like, I don't know about this. I said, yeah, you're getting close to the edges of Western tradition there, and the storytelling is going to be more poetic than have a point. I warned him about this. Because, see, he doesn't like Stalker. I've tried to make him watch that. But then he did like Night Watch a lot. He's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, that's weird, esoteric storytelling with, like, modern sensibilities. And what was the other one? Like, he despised Stalker, but then he'll watch that Primer movie, like, 20 That's so cool. I said, and so that's one where my wife's like, you guys aren't watching that time travel bullshit movie. Yeah, I guess he wants to. He'll watch that obsessively, and Donnie Darko, which I don't know what to know about. Like, why do you like this movie so much, son?
Yeah, that's a movie really for teenagers.
Yeah, I guess it kind of. I mean, he kind of is that character in a lot of ways in his life. He's involved, but he's always the guy at the edge saying something disturbing. But he's like, oh, he's actually is on the football team, but he'll also say something like, what does he want for his senior year quote from 1984? It's like, because they'll have a quote. And he's like, I want to put like that thing from Room 101 where we meet in the place where there is no shadows. And I'm like, that sounds really funny. Because people will think you're gonna come shoot the fucking place up or something. I appreciate the sentiment, but it's just wrong time for that. Let's not talk about meeting in shadows. Oh, I'm pretty sure you're not gonna want to kill yourself. But, based on the number of like firearms around this house, I feel pretty safe with you. But yeah, just don't put. Some people don't share that sense of humor.
Especially not in a school setting.
Especially not in a school setting. Where it's,
We want you to express yourself, but not really.
be optimistic about your future. It's like, oh, I am, but it's definitely not the future you envision. It's like, I'm hopeful for it. Maybe not in a way you'd be comfortable.
Also on Netflix, I made you watch the Castlevania series.
Yes, and I actually enjoyed that. It's pretty quick. It's a quick read.
Or watch.
Yeah, well, they're only like, some of them are, the first series are like 12 minutes, and then the second season they got more into like 28 minutes.
Yeah, it's like a half first season and then like a real second season.
Yeah. I actually like the second season a little more.
Oh yeah, because it's like actually gets like in depth character wise. There's like the weird shit with the humans that like make the monsters.
Yeah,
the monster forges and shit like that.
And I was hoping to have that explained. It's like, oh, are they like weird surgeons? Are they using dark magic? It's like, oh, they're hitting a corpse with a hammer. Just whatever it takes.
And there's some interesting stuff there. You know, this is based on a video game series that essentially has no great story to be told, and they pulled this from that. Is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It was pretty cool. I mean, they definitely did a lot with this. What did they? There was a name for this when I was reading about this, like bootleg fiction almost. It's like, well, we're gonna take the bare bones premise and we're gonna fill it in.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna make it something more than it ever was. We're gonna have vampire politics. Dracula's gonna be the good bad guy, and
yeah, that's probably the thing they do the best is that Dracula is they not humanize him, but they make him sympathetic somewhat, even though he's going to go do evil things. But he starts off like he falls in love with this human woman, and the church decides to kill her for being a witch because she's trying to help people, you know, with their sicknesses. She's trying to be a fucking doctor. Dracula is literally putting this woman through medical school, and the church kills her for it. So they all deserve to die.
Yeah, somebody really doesn't like the Catholic Church. They are all irredeemable cowards and evil people, and yeah. So that was
And that was like one of the coolest parts in the second half, where you have like the internal strife between the different vampire clans, and like they used the priest they killed in like the second episode. They use his corpse to go bless the water that the castle landed in, and like this starts killing all these fucking vampires. It's like this priest nuclear bomb going off.
yeah. I did like the priest bomb. And then they had the Scottish vampire guy who's just really aggressive, you know. And they have like small dick jokes about him running throughout, or something like that.
Is that the guy who like dreams of being a wolf and shit like that?
Yeah. He has a Scottish accent. He's really aggressive, but he's
Is it? Oh, I thought it was like maybe we're thinking of different people, because there's like a guy. He's like a known actor, but I think he's like Swedish or some shit.
oh, okay. I could be getting the accent wrong. I thought he said.
Well, yeah, he has some accent, but I mean, he's supposed to be like a Viking, right?
I think so. Yeah.
You know, because they're thousands of years old and shit. But yeah, oh, there's a third season. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's coming up shortly.
Fucking what's his name? Where is it at? I'm gonna.
Oh, Peter Stormare plays him.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that is a Swedish. That guy's funny.
plays Godbrand. That's his fucking name.
Godbrand, yeah.
But yeah, I thought, you know, I have to slowly introduce you to. Yeah, that would be a Western anime. That'd be a
Yeah.
show that kind of has an anime look to it, but it's really developed by a Western.
Yes, this is a linear
Western.
story. There's weird elements in it, but they're not. They don't take away. It's still like a story.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you got to kill Dracula. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
simple. I mean, that's the video game simple story, and then they fill it in with a lot of interesting details.
And then Dracula's son is like you know he was gonna fuck everyone over.
Yeah.
I mean, you just knew he was evil from the word go. And Trevor Belmont's kind of an idiot.
Who was burdened with the family business of fighting vampires.
Yeah, well, he seems like kind of an idiot rogue, and he's someone who he plays dumb a lot, but then like at the last minute he'll just pull some hat trick and
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, this is how you kill everyone. It's like, well, what was this? But he's not. He's like a rogue, but he's not an immoral character. He's just someone who's sort of.
He knows the truth, and he knows he's going up against something he probably won't win against.
Yeah.
So he might as well be drunk doing it or have fun.
Yeah, he has this weird pessimism. He always seems to come out like okay, but he's really pessimistic. You know, they killed my family because of this shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and hyper violent.
Oh yeah, insanely violent. But it didn't take me out of it.
No, I mean it's a cartoon, so it kind of helped him lessen it. But was that part like he whips that guy's eye out? Like I remember that being like Jesus.
Yeah, that whip gets hardcore a few times.
There's that one monster forger. He just like fucking has a strap with nails on it, and slaps his back with it.
Yeah, it's definitely like a grim world, but
Yeah.
you know, and like I said, you don't have you don't want humans to be killed because you are one, but then you see how a lot of the humans act, and it's like, oh, they're just cowards and bad people, but then you realize, well, the vampires are fucked up too. It's like, oh, this is like real life. It's complicated.
Well, yeah, because there's also like this idea that vampires are leading the way and they're scientific, but ultimately like we're just their food, and then like the church is getting in the way of it because they have power enough to fight against this evil, but also they're hindering human progress at the same time.
Yeah, they're more concerned with maintaining their franchise than really expanding opportunities for humanity to grow, which weirdly reflects reality.
But yeah, I just remember being like really surprised about like the quality of the show, because mostly anything that's a video game adaptation is terrible, and this is probably the best video game adaptation of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's well done at the same time. Like it's never quite winks at the audience, but sort of. It's just like.
What was that time that like they did that remix of the theme from Castlevania, but that was like just an awesome action scene. So you're like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have that just as an homage to the story. I was waiting for a side-scrolling scene. I don't think they really ever.
No,
I
that
don't
would
think
be
they went
weird.
that far. So yeah, it was the right amount of nostalgia versus let's make an entertaining story too. It's not or but, it's and. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I enjoyed it. Looking forward to the third season. It's on my watch list.
And then I meant to watch the third season of Jessica Jones, but I almost have no drive to watch it, being I know the show is canceled. So.
Just a sadness, an extra sadness you don't want.
Yeah, well, I mean, out of all those Marvel shows, that was the best one. And the
Why
second,
So it just
because just Disney's starting their own streaming service, so they just want all that stuff for themselves.
okay, well that's good.
As far as I know, I mean, that's really putting all the blame on Disney, where there's probably some on Netflix too. But it's like, why give Disney any credit? Just
Yeah, sometimes Disney you see it as a sinister force, but I think with Disney is like they're fringing with antitrust at this point. Like they're getting close to like, well, okay, there's going to be, Marvel's going to have to be its own entity, and you can't have everything in one house, because that's when the quality really starts to degrade.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's there's different production and things with that. So they've been lucky with the Marvel stuff, has been largely well done.
Yes.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to look back 10 years from now if maybe we should do like something where we watch like the first Iron Man movie. And it's like, does this stuff hold up at all, or is this just like weird nostalgia trips for the Marvel universe?
Yeah, does this have merit, or is this just an early 2000s, mid 2000s like trip down memory lane?
Because I feel like all those movies are they're just well constructed, fun movies. But are they, are any of those important movies? Like, I don't know, but I don't put that onus on that, because like these are made for entertainment. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. If it entertains me, then it's hard for me to judge it if it did its intended job. I'd hate to like drag it through. It's like, what's how did the Marvel Cinematic Universe advance filmmaking in the 22nd century?
Yeah, that would be a weird trip. I'm sure there's someone offering a college class on it.
Because it's big films right now. That's all they make is like you have this weird indie stuff on VOD that's pretty well done. You have the Netflix and Amazon stuff that's pretty well done, small indie stuff that you never go to the theater to watch because it seems too traumatic or embarrassing, whatever. But here you can watch it in the privacy of your own home. And then I guess Netflix is going to cut back on their movies.
Yeah.
Because I read some article. Actually, I didn't read it. Just kind of read a bit of it. There was that Ben Affleck movie where like special forces guys like rob a drug cartel. It was called like Three something. Triple Frontier. Yeah, that's right. I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool, and then I just never watched it, which is what I do with almost every Netflix movie. It's like, oh, that looks cool, and then I never watch it, but I'll fucking binge watch a series. I just never bother with their movies.
Yeah, Netflix is one of those things. Is like, I don't know anything about entertainment. It's like the politics and the internal stuff, but I do know like the auto industry pretty good. Netflix always seemed to me like to be the Tesla of the movies. It's like, hey, we're new and different, we're innovative, and we're going to do all this stuff. We're not making any money. Like the thing that we whisper in secret, like we're going to change the world and figure out how to do it without making any money.
Well, I think like they were hoping maybe they can make money, but if they don't, they have built a fairly undeniable library as everyone leaves their streaming service to go make their own streaming thing.
Yeah,
And if they can make it the next 10 years on the stuff they've made already, because they're not going to keep spending like $8 billion on TV shows and movies every year.
right.
If they can make it the next 10 years and everyone's streaming service fails and they got to come back to Netflix, then Netflix is golden.
Yeah, I mean and I don't know who else has a streaming service. They got Amazon, but Amazon's weird because it's like multi-tentacle.
Yeah, that's just a side effect of Amazon in and of itself. It's like, here's a streaming service, we don't know, whatever.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Free shipping and a streaming service.
The best way to watch movies from 10 to 12 years ago, and then some original content. I don't know, like Paramount's doing with their video streaming service.
NBC is going to start doing their own thing with somebody. So I'm guessing, because I thought NBC and a bunch, it used to be Hulu was like the networks combining together, but now they're splitting off. I mean, CBS never joined in with that because they were always number one anyway, so they don't have to capitulate to anybody. But like ABC and NBC, like I think they were like the backbones behind Hulu. Now I don't know who's behind Hulu anymore because NBC is gonna do their own thing. They already failed doing their own thing because they had this it was like a comedy based streaming service called CISO.
Okay, I remember that.
Which had like a bunch of stand up and like Monty Python and Saturday Night Live and some originals that are really good. And so it was after 2 years they canceled that. So it's another NBC thing to fail at, but I guess they got another service. Disney has their service coming out sometime soon, probably in the next 2 years or so. So like all the Marvel stuff is going to be leaving Netflix. Probably. Oh yeah, DC already has their streaming service.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, you got what is it? It's something Doom Patrol, I think, or something like that. It's like I heard good things about that, but I didn't want to buy. It was a weekly. It's not like all in one. It's like every week we have a new episode.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't want to get the streaming service and continue with the shows just to watch this one show. So I was waiting till the end of it and then get 1 month subscription, watch the show, and cancel it. Which I imagine what a lot of people are doing. And apparently they already canceled their Swamp Thing show as soon as it premiered, and apparently it's good. So that's fucking weird.
It sounds like some weird internal thing.
Yeah. That's all the streaming services, like major ones. Like there's like I told you, there's like 10 fucking different wrestling streaming services out there.
Well, and then the next question too, like what we're hearing around here is like the next big question is like who's gonna provide the pipeline for these streaming services, because cable companies are not doing very good.
No, my cable bill is the biggest bill I pay.
Yeah,
it costs almost twice as much to pay for my cable as it does to pay for my monthly car payment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's that way around here too.
And it's like I listen to podcasts from San Francisco, and like I'm paying more than what they fucking pay.
Oh yeah, well here it's just all. Also, they don't. I've heard they don't have. I don't know about you. I think around here we have really good, stable, high-speed internet. But then they like came up with bandwidth caps, and then they don't enforce them, and it's like, okay, whatever. I don't know what you're doing, but
Yeah, because basically Comcast owns California.
Yes, that's what we have out here though, is Comcast.
We have MediaCom, and so like nobody gives a shit. That it works, but I wouldn't say it's good. It's just what we got, and we do the show on it, so it works well enough. I don't think we've ever lost a show. We might have lost segments to the internet.
Yeah, I mean it's all basic. I mean it's good. But yeah, we're run under huge monopolies in the Midwest because there's not like 20 cable providers.
Yeah.
Competing.
And then also like that Google Fiber thing seemed like the hope we were waiting for, and they fucking stopped doing that shit.
Well,
it's
yeah,
like they got all the fucking data they wanted out of those towns they gave free cable to, and then they said fuck that.
Yeah, they figured out that like, oh, most of our customers are racist hillbillies and perverts. That's what we learned. Yeah, that was going to be a big thing around here. And what was the other thing? Oh, FiOS.
Yeah.
It was in FiOS. The T3 lines run right to your house or something, and that like, I mean, they were advertising that heavily here, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we're not doing that now. It's like they put it out on the East Coast, and that was it, and it didn't expand any. Somebody's using FiOS in New York and parts of Maryland, and I guess just the infrastructure behind that is ungodly expensive.
Yeah, especially in America.
Yeah. Well, because you're laying lines next to lines next to lines, and
at some point, like the distance between people is like, we need to connect these two people, and like the money to do that, and the money you're gonna get from those two people.
yeah,
It's like the infrastructure to build New York is the same cost as connecting these two people together.
well, that's the biggest infrastructure problem in Kentucky right now. Is lack of like only around the big cities do people have internet.
Yeah.
I just mean internet. I don't mean high speed. No one's arguing about, well, my fragmented T1 line's not working. No, the people in most of Kentucky, the rural parts, they have no option for internet.
Yeah.
And the government, I think in 2012 or 14, they were trying to pass bills where the government was just going to pay to put it in there. Like, okay, we'll just subsidize that and someone else will service it. And their own senator, that McConnell guy, like vetoed it. It's like, well, that would just that would waste precious taxpayer money. We can't do that, to help people. Are you fucking crazy? So, yeah.
And maybe all this stuff is getting stopped because everyone's hoping for 5G, which I hear can't get through walls, so that's going to be a nightmare.
I've heard all kinds of bad things about it.
Yeah.
I've heard the effect they want to use to make sure the signal is high powered stuff it's like you're a few frequency points away from microwaving people if they're close enough to it, and you got to put a bunch of tiny receivers in instead of the big towers. And because I know they're looking at what's this is Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, they're putting the 5G things up on the poles, like the light poles and shit. Like that's how bad the real estate is around here. Around anything that's even a medium city is like, oh, they're renting out space on top of the the stoplights and stuff. They're putting all kinds of communication equipment on those now. For private companies, not for the city, not for the police. Is private companies putting those up there. Yeah, I don't know.
And people keep trying, because I know Facebook was doing this, and now Google's doing it, but I haven't seen it actually come to fruition yet. But they're going to have those essentially drones, lightweight drones that fly very high in the atmosphere. So basically like U-2 plane drones.
Yeah.
And then they just would fly around a circle around the world, and they would distribute internet.
Oh yeah, Microsoft. I know Gates wanted to do this global internet initiative.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bunch of these are going to be satellites though.
Yeah.
Geostationary orbit, and they're going to do it in Africa. So like everyone in Africa would have high-speed internet shot in from satellites that are in it's a weird orbit though. But then they want to send, create planes that'll go from New York to London in an hour, and those are exo-atmospheric. And it's like, well, I hope they don't run into the free internet satellite.
Well, that's the thing that they're doing is like really what these companies need now is not necessarily customers, but just people on their shit.
Yeah.
And if you're if your potential customer base is the entire world, then you're done.
Yep, that's a wrap. When you get 7 billion customers, you've served as many customers as McDonald's has served hamburgers in 20 years. So- yeah, I mean, I remember I read that once. They say like the internet and computers, they're actually going back to the because it used to be like NBC, ABC, CBS. They just blasted their signal out of towers. You didn't have to pay for it. I mean, you got it on a big antenna. But you just had to watch the advertisements and watch the TV shows. And they're like, the internet is actually going back to that model, just like, Happy Days had, that was one of the most watched shows in history. They had 30 million people watching that at a time when the population of America was like 200 million, 160 million. Like, that's a lot of people. But yeah, you can. I mean, they did that with cell phones in parts of Africa. I know that's the weirdest thing you'll ever see is like everyone gathered around a well to get water, and they all got their smartphones out, like texting each other. It's like, wait a minute, we've sort of jumped ahead. Let's get that water piped into people's homes. It's like they can send a text to me from a well in Africa, but
now they can watch a YouTube video how to build a better well, build an irrigation system.
Yeah, they could. That might help.
I mean, it won't be in their native language, but
Have you ever seen the translate options on some of those?
We can do that with ours.
It's like you can just like Urdu.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't have that. They don't have that built into theirs.
Oh no, you can do that. You can do that. That's because every broadcast we do, there's a transcript automatically created.
Yeah.
Whether it's correct or not, it's there, and then
Yeah.
then you just go to Google Translate, and it'll do its best to do whatever the fuck, and then it'll spit it out for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it'll be that weird translation though, where it comes across where it's like it's a lot of Japanese model building videos I watch. I'll do auto translate. Yeah, sometimes the language it's a little weird.
I know there's some companies out there that they have special things they can do where they can tweak that, and it's like an extra fee, and then you can, because there's like some Patreon things they'll do that where it's like, hey, if we get to this level, then I can put better translations for whatever selection of languages.
Yeah,
if that meets that level at the Patreon.
Because I know Japanese to English and vice versa is really strange.
Yeah.
Essentially, like it's human language, human beings invented it, but they are totally not compatible in how things are expressed, and concepts don't translate well. Because I mean, Dad learned that when he was in Japan so much. I mean, there's a whole subgenre called English. It's just about how the Japanese reinterpret the things we say and do, and apply it to their stuff, and it's get weird translations. Like please keep children and dogs on leashes in park, and sit on the bench when eating bowl, and it's just like weird translations like that. Because when you go word for word, that's what it is, but it's not what it means.
Sit on the bench when eating, people.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how it makes sense in English, but then you translate it. It's like sit on the bench when you're eating, people.
In a very dour way. Please no flushing baby down toilet. And don't flush the baby's diaper down the toilet. Don't stuff those babies down toilets, you psychopaths. Unless that's the new meme on the internet. Let's see what any new news and world news in the horrible world of entertainment, pedophiles, and whatever the fuck our government is. Interesting lately.
I mean, not really. It's just the same. I haven't really been paying that attention. Just like, is it still fucked up? Yep. Okay.
Still the same people in charge. Yep.
Did Trump still fire people? Yep. That's actually probably one of the few good things he does. Like, this isn't working, we'll fire him. But it's a consistent pattern of firing people. Oh, I guess it's not working, huh? Like, maybe you should change. Nope.
It's not me. I'm not the problem. The problem is the problem. I'm like the guy in the middle of the ring at the circus. Watch the bears dance. You know, that's my job.
Also,
We're running out of money. I heard that. No, I mean literally, like physically running out of money.
oh, it's all been transported somewhere else.
Well, no, we're running budget. Remember when we used to be like at the end of the year? It's like, oh God, we've almost to $1 trillion of deficit. Now we're doing that every quarter. We're like, oh, $4 trillion in the negative. But they've passed all these weird laws where you can't increase spending, or like the Congress has to adjust it. And Nancy Pelosi's like, no, we're not going to adjust this, so you can build your space navy or whatever you're doing. And so that was like, oh no, we're not going to be able to pay our bills, and we can't physically print enough money to, you know, if we had to print money to pay into this debt, we don't have enough, or something. It's those esoteric things that happen. But the bottom line is we have way too much tax cuts going on.
Yeah, it's the Republican philosophy is like, if we go down, you're all coming with us, so
Yeah.
you better give me a handout.
The mighty ship takes many down.
But we'll campaign on fiscal solvency and responsibility.
Well, it's fiscal responsibility if you need food stamps or you're old and need Social Security. You've got to be taught a lesson. Just running some like sinister corporation. It's like, oh, we need to give you all you deserve more because you're successful, and you're not like all these failures out here that just make $50,000 a year, and fuck those people.
Yeah, I haven't like invested too much in politics, even though I should. But like the thing I keep thinking of is like I just need a better. I just don't have like the argument or the set of arguments ready, where things won't like. Nah, I'm just being too vague. The thing I was saying, remember when Trump like tweeted out Kavifi or whatever, that stupid shit?
Yeah.
And then just like, because that was the first stupid thing he did, everyone jumped on that. It's like, look what an idiot he is. But like, that means nothing. That does nothing to disprove anything. That's not. It's so like, there's a lot of like, let's jump behind he's an idiot when there's like a lot more actual arguments to be argued. Let's not just have fun in the sake of arguments. Like, if we lose, well, at least we got a laugh out of it. Like it's probably why I don't watch any of like the funny political shows anymore, because I want some actual discourse and ideas.
Yeah, I have the argument.
I still love that stuff anyways, but every time I laugh at it, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm dying inside, we're losing.
I have the arguments ready, and I'm loaded on stuff like that. But the problem is, it's like Mark Maron said it perfectly. It's like, I can argue with people all day long and just tell them why they're wrong. I can give them information. I can tell them what to read. But the thing is, I'm not moving the needle. No one's like, all the guys at work and the people I know that are just hardcore for this president and think he's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not going to tell them anything ever where they're going to be like, hey, you know what? You're right. Maybe I should. I'll never hear those words.
Yeah.
It's just like, I gave up. It's like, you can keep cheering from, the bleachers or whatever. But, it's like neither one of us are playing this game, and no one on the court's losing. It's us that's losing. But because I hate politics, too. I hate both parties. So I'm not like I don't have a team anymore. I've given up. I think the Republicans are exactly what the Republicans have always been. And I think that the Democrats are going to eat themselves with the crazy, wacko leftist people. So it's like, okay, you're all going down. I don't know what's gonna. I'm waiting for the next.
And the libertarians just want to build personal castles and enslave everybody.
The libertarians are just. What did I call them before? Neo-feudalists. Like, want to go back to the lord and serf times, and it's like, yeah, I'm not. I'm kind of like, I've taken that Dan Carlin long view. It's like, I'm waiting for the the next thing, the third party, whatever. Because this whole group, they're just going to eat themselves, and they're going to destroy themselves. The right's going to do it for greed and just maliciousness, and the left's going to do it because they're just
On principle?
not even principles. It's just they're gonna
No, they're gonna destroy themselves on principle. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't supposed to work anyways.
They're like those weird West German, or they're like the weird West German socialists that ran Germany in the 60s and 70s, where they just imploded around. It goes back to Athenian democracy, where it was like, well, we've got to let the pigs and the sheep and the donkeys vote too, because they're citizens in this society. It's like, okay, that's a wrap, boys. We'll reconvene and try this again with another group of people. And it's like, yeah, but this is always where that stuff goes. It's just, it's not about can you change it, it's can you mitigate the damage. It's like, are we going to have to rebuild civilization, or can we just stop and realize both these paradigms are stupid? We need something else. That's the thing. How close to that do we have to get before people have said no more? Apparently we're not there yet.
Until the water wars of 2035.
No, we still have this just obscenely low voter turnout, like nobody cares. And maybe if people don't care, a lot of people don't have time. Well, a lot of people work 3 jobs. I mean, they're not sitting around investing a lot of time and thinking about
What's the ratio to people that don't care to the people who feel like they don't know enough to make an informed decision?
I would say the number of people that don't care, and I don't know what the percentage would be, but it's probably a lot higher. People who, not too many people worry too much anymore based on what I see on the internet about being uninformed about any subject at any time. They're willing to sound off and have a very strident opinion, even about really obscure esoteric shit. It's like, no, I think it's this. It's not based on any real information. It's just, it's like, how does this fit into my QAnon / Rise of the Third Reich, whatever, Fourth Reich conspiracy theory that I have? So yeah, I think the people that don't care way outnumber the people that are afraid to say something because they're uninformed.
And how many people think you're gonna vote for the fun of it?
Yeah,
Like, let's just watch the world burn.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Trump's a fun choice. Fuck it all. Watch everyone die. You're gonna die too, as long as you die first. I'm all in.
As long as you die screaming.
This ain't about living for a better life or thinking about a future. It's just about knowing that I fucked you over.
It's about dying for my entertainment.
When them gates of hell open, I want to walk in arm in arm with you and be like, where this led you? Now I got eternity to prove you were wrong. Okay.
It vaguely reminds me of a new show on YouTube.
Okay, that doesn't surprise me.
So, you know, Cyanide and Happiness?
Yes.
So they made a new show called Purgatony.
Okay.
It's basically just an office comedy that takes place in purgatory. There's like angels and demons, and like he's an office worker that basically has to figure out people who died, whether they go to heaven or hell. But he's like he's just terrible at his job. And then death is like a 20-foot skeleton that he talks to, and it's a great line because his name's Tony Purgatelli. He's like, "Hi, I'm Tony Purgatelli. This is Purgatory." And then they have to review his case files, whether he goes, and it's just really just crazy shit after that.
It's just like if the afterlife is administrated by boring mid-level.
Yeah.
And
then angels and demon shit and violence for no reason and bunch of shit like that.
Where's that on?
It's on the Cyanide and Happiness channel.
Oh, okay.
Or you can just look it up. Just put Purgatony. It's like you're spelling purgatory, but then you put Tony at the end.
It's like rigatoni, but it's a holding place for heaven and hell.
Yeah, it's like the opening scene is you see like just basically this office building where it looks like the top is being like sucked into heaven and the bottom is being like torn away towards hell.
In 2,000 years, that'll be religion again.
And then there's the weird thing where like time is like it's like a Mobius strip. It's like, it's circular and upside down and backwards, and so like people from the future and from the past are dying and coming to Tony to be judged.
Oh, okay. So it's here.
Yeah.
Purgatony. I'll check that out. Well, for this week, we read a book.
This month.
This month. Yeah, this month's book. We read the 1984 William Gibson novel Neuromancer, which is actually, upon rereading this, it's like, oh, I really like this book. I really liked it when I read it 15 years, or no, I read this when I was in high school. This book would have came out when I was 10 years old. So, but keep in mind throughout this discussion, this book was written in 1984, and it basically set the stage for almost everything we imagine about a dystopian computerized future. And
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing with this book.
Well, I have problems with this book, but you can sing its praises.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's things to talk about here. Let's talk about the positives of the book. I mean, it's
well, also like the one weird hurdle I had in me, because I know how like influential this book is, because that's why it's like it's been on my radar, but I never actually read it. But also like, oh wait, this came out in 1984. That means like Blade Runner the movie predates this.
Yeah, by 2 years.
Which I guess that gave William Gibson a lot of he was like that was a nightmare for him, because he thought he's already writing the book, is like people are just gonna think I'm stealing from Blade Runner.
Well, he never watched Blade Runner.
Oh, he did?
No, because for that reason.
Oh, okay.
I listened to a long interview with him about Neuromancer and some other things. Because this is actually like a book that comes up with his name. It's like, this is the one everyone knows. But he's written a lot of cool books.
Yeah.
This is the one where, and he's kind of realistic about this book.
Well, and like, I'm not sure all this stuff, but like I know Johnny Mnemonic was one of the stories that actually predates this book.
Yes.
And that was one that was turned into a movie rather than Neuromancer.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Oddly, yes. Yeah, the short stories that came out of this were Johnny Mnemonic, Burning Chrome, and there was another.
Which is a recently released video game, but I don't think it has anything to do with the novel.
No, just that's borrowed his cool name.
Yeah.
Because this book is part one of what they call the Sprawl trilogy, which a lot of people don't know that. Where was it? Yeah, because this book is this is the first part of and it's weird because it's a trilogy, and some of the characters cross over, but they don't. It's not really continuing the same story. It's just different characters every time. This is Neuromancer, Count Zero, and Mona Lisa Overdrive.
Okay.
They're all related to this kind of overarching theme of AIs achieving independence and the effects that has in the world later. But one of the things, like this is a lot of people that just read the back of the book. It's like, oh, this is the book that established the cyberpunk genre. And a lot of terms that were introduced in this book that are in common parlance now came from this book.
Cyberspace.
Yeah.
The idea of the Matrix.
Yes. And William Gibson has an interesting take on that, because the interviewer was kind of giving that boilerplate to him. He's like, no, you got to understand, I didn't create any of that stuff. It's just people read this book and know about it and kind of adopted those terms to the technology we have now. He says, I didn't know how computers worked when I wrote this book, and I don't know how they work now. He goes, I know what the internet is and all that, but he said he's very uncomfortable with people saying he's some prophet of the future. He's like, no, I just made a bunch of shit up, and then everyone else applied.
He trademarked a bunch of things that people have brought to the...
Oh, he didn't trademark.
Well, how would you say that? He came up with phrases that everyone repackaged. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he didn't. He didn't make any money off it. He non-coined the phrase. He progenitored the phrase. Whatever.
Well, he, but he's kind of a little bit vaguely defensive about people saying he's like a futurist or something. He's like, no, they took the terms in this book that I created that was this world that like kind of works, but I was describing something that didn't exist, and they just reapplied them to that. It's like cyberspace. Because what did he say? And people have written essays about this book where, because like when they went into the computer world, and when they jacked in, which very matrixy. It wasn't really a clearly coherent world where they were doing things except flying near stuff, and it was kind of like almost like the Tron version.
We break this ice.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to use this Chinese virus to. But all those concepts were like nobody had heard of computer viruses or anything, and neither had he. That's just how he visualized it, and then later on it became computer virus.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, I'd say, like a subculture of computer programmers and hackers and stuff like that really latched on this book and carried a lot of these concepts forward as either unintended or intended, or just attached it to things that made sense, brought that verbiage over.
But back to him and the thing about Blade Runner, like when he was, because he wrote this book, he said in a fit of pure panic because he really didn't have a story. He was kind of writing under deadline, and so a lot of the concepts that are thrown out in this book and don't really develop, that's the reason why. But one of the reasons he didn't watch Blade Runner, and when he finally did, he realized in the first 5 minutes of the movie, it's like, oh, this movie is 100% better than that book I wrote, and I knew it was going to be this way. That's why I didn't watch this movie until after I wrote the book. So this movie this book is kind of a partner with Blade Runner in this sort of stylized future now that everyone almost accepts as like this
with like Asian influence and bright lights and stuff like that.
Well, yeah,
and and monolithic cities. What's the thing of the fucking book? It's like it's like the Baltimore, Atlanta metropolitan area, like Baltimore and Atlanta grew into like a sister cities, like they got so huge. I didn't understand that shit at all. And they're talking about what Chiba. So it's like 3 different locations at once. Like, where are we?
Well, you're essentially the sprawl is the west coast of the United States. If it was inhabited from Boston to the tip of Florida, with a solid city.
Yeah,
like it's just a city. There's no towns in between it. It is just a giant, what they call metroplex, where it's this huge city with hundreds of millions of people, kind of like
Judge Dredd, the Metro City.
Yeah. It's very,
what do they call those?
Mega cities.
Mega cities. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's very, very similar in concept to that, and like there is no U.S. government in this. The U.S. is a territory, and we don't know what time this is set in. It's just like in the near future. So it's kind of left vague, but essentially what's happened in this, you learn this if you read the Sprawl trilogy. So a lot of things I'm going to reference are going to be outside of Neuromancer, but part of like the bigger world, because there's still a Russia and there's a Europe, but America has essentially fought so many wars that the country went broke and their authority was subsumed by what they called mega corporations. So America is just a giant conglomerate of corporations, and a lot of them are Japanese run. So it's sort of it's a lot of that. Remember, the Japanese were going to take over the world in the 80s, because it's like,
that's Die Hard. It's like it's a theme from Die Hard.
Yeah, it's like, they're better at car making and management and everything.
Well, like the 80s, they came over here and bought a bunch of American stuff. That's why the fucking who bought the Mariners? It's like Nintendo bought the Mariners or some shit like that. And then there's a bunch of like Japanese companies came over here, bought a bunch of American shit, and that didn't work out.
No, well, yeah, the Japanese were the richest people in the world from the mid 80s until the mid 90s. They literally had more disposable income per citizen than almost anyone in the world or anyone had ever had. And then they got into the yen crisis, where they were devaluing their currency to make exports cheap, to the point where, oh fuck, we gotta, and they have also lots of people to employ in very crowded cities, and there's a lot of reasons why Japan is not the Japan of the past. But at the time this book was written, it was very conceivable that like, they're just going to become giant corporations, and they're gonna run the world.
And to be fair, a lot of sprawling, gigantic city with technological features that seem improbable actually exists in Tokyo.
Yeah, a lot of he said a lot of this was based on things he saw in, because William Gibson's a weird dude. He's a guy.
No.
Weird dude. He's not like deeply weird, like personally strange in all the interviews I've
Like
read.
can't communicate with people.
He can, but only about things he's interested in.
Okay.
Nowadays we have a word for that. Back then that was called being a little backwards. Now we would call that autism, mainly, basically. I don't know. But he's kind of a guy that, like, because he grew up in Virginia and he wanted to go to college and do all that. And, you know, he's like 70 something years. So he's like our parents' age. And I know he scored really high on his college entrance exams, except for math. Like, he went to 3 different colleges. I don't know if this was pre-SAT or how, but I know he had to take exams. And they said, oh, your ability to comprehend, like, English and all those are off the charts. Your math, it's like you never took a math class. So it essentially couldn't get into college anywhere. So he just went around the country in the 60s, hitchhiking, taking the most powerful psychedelic drugs he could find, because he wanted to understand, like, well, where's humanity going? Like, that was sort of his thing. And that's in the 60s. That was fairly, that sounds weird today, but back then it's like, that's cutting edge. It's like hitchhike around, take acid, think about concepts, and read a lot of books. And then he went up to Canada and then immigrated to Canada for some reason and stayed up there. But then he started writing, basically writing serialized fiction for magazines, science fiction magazines like Asimov's Monthly and things like that. Because a lot of his stuff originally showed up as like short stories in sci-fi magazines.
Yeah.
That's how he got the 3-book deal for the Sprawl trilogy. So, I mean, that's a little bit about his background. And now he's going around giving speeches because he reluctantly given this moniker of, like, you're the guy who created the cyberpunk dystopian future that everyone sees now. And now he's kind of saying we need to give younger people more positive futures to look to than that, because those were never written as like viable futures. Because in Neuromancer, you know, the air is poison. People have their organs replaced all the time, usually from alcoholism and drug use, but also for other reasons. And it's like, yeah, the whole world is poison.
Or to inhibit drug use.
Like supercharge your pancreas so your body doesn't even absorb the shit. Also, another early thing he called is, remember, one of the main characters was basically addicted to opioids. The illusionist guy, he was addicted to an early form of synthetic opioid, and that's what they called it. Like, and those transdermal patches, because I was asking my wife about this, I was like, do you have medicine where you just put on a patch and it'll make you stoned or do whatever? She's like, oh yeah, they do that all the time when your digestive system's so compromised or you need it right into your bloodstream. It takes a lot less to put a patch on, and that shit didn't exist when he wrote this book. That came much later. I forget when she said that was, like 2008, 2009, when they started coming into common use. So that's another thing that William Gibson called way in advance, or at least people read it and applied it to what's going on now, because that's what he likes to say. Which that's what I like about this guy. He's not totally sucked. For someone who gets all this credit, he's really reluctant about it. Sometimes,
well, yeah,
legitimacy for me. But.
Well, because one thing I read is that there's a line from, and I forget it. There's a line from Escape from New York that he really liked, which I guess he latched onto a writing style for this movie, where it's like it's in that sequence where Snake Plissken's being processed, and the guy says a throwaway lines like, "Oh, you were in like the Phoenix something down in Brazil during the what war?" And it's like,
oh, flew the Gulf fire over Moscow, I think is what he
yeah. And that sentence implied a lot. It's like, okay, he once was in the military, we're fighting the Russians. It implies a lot, but like you never dive into like what that means at all.
No. Just he's basically a commando of some kind with flight skills.
So a lot of that is in this book, where it just implies a lot but doesn't really go in depth with anything.
Just kind of cool.
Yeah, and frustrating.
Well, I mean, but the story's told from like, what would you call that? Like the third person, like not the omnipotent narrator, but the well informed narrator. Because the voice in this book is kind of written like almost from a distance. If you see what I mean, where it's like it's assuming you know things, maybe you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. It doesn't bother. Yeah, because like a novel, like it would introduce a concept and it might spend a paragraph in describing the history of this, but it does not delve into the history of anything really.
No, the frenetic style with, I mean, if you really hated this, I don't know if you get any more out of Burnt or Count Zero or Mona Lisa Overdrive. The books change; they get a little more into the world.
Well, I didn't necessarily hate this. It was just a hard read because I would constantly get lost because I would read. I would get like 50 pages in, and like I'd be like, and it like everything seemed like a haze. Like I interpreted like sort of like the cultural malaise and like kind of like the look of it. Like how people interacted with each other. I didn't necessarily get like a whole lot of like story and character. And then I would go to the Wikipedia and read the synopsis. It's like, yeah, that's what I read, I guess. the Wikipedia does a far better job of explaining what's going on in the book than the actual book.
One problem with the written version of this book, and I just read it because I remember reading it and I read it again and I read it very quickly, but I haven't, I've been on a 2-week shutdown, so I have all kinds of time to just sit around and read. This book kind of plays with language in a way that it was confusing. People complained a lot about how confusing this was in 1984 because it was a lot of new terms. Now it's like we know those terms and we assume things about them, but it's not necessarily what's in the book. And so I could see how you could read a bunch of shit and it's like, oh, they're talking about this and drugs and a deck to go into cyberspace. But it doesn't mean quite the same things that because to me, when I read this in the 90s, internet, I didn't have the internet until 1999, but that's just because I wasn't interested in paying for it. It was around in 95, but it was stupid and expensive and nobody really, there was those like 3 websites and they all sucked.
Yeah.
So for me reading this, it's like, yeah, these terms actually mean this to me, what's in the book. Whereas now you read those terms and also the way he uses language is a little weird because he's not like sentences in, with like apostrophes and then we jump to the next thing. And it's a style of writing, but it's confusing as fuck to read.
Well, there's also ways where he'll do like chapter breaks. Or just what do we call it? Just like, or an end chapter break, and sometimes you do that to like, oh, some time went by, and we're gonna pick up when after the time had gone by, or you do a chapter break, and it's like, this picks up after something, but like sometimes but like the lead off from the previous sentence and the lead in from the next sentence sometimes have nothing to do with each other, and you have to like reattain your bearings. Like, where the fuck am I? What's going on? Because sometimes you're in cyberspace and you don't know it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's not made very clear. Like when he's talking to Wintermute, which is one of the AIs. That's eventually we'll get around to.
Yeah, I love the naming conventions of the book. It's very a Kaiser Soze, like he was just looking around the room and naming things.
Yeah.
Your name's Case. That guy's Wage. He's just looking at shit at the room.
Yeah, just picking stuff off. Yeah, this is Quartet. And what was the woman's name?
Molly Millions.
Molly Millions. The chick with
razor fingers.
She was basically Wolverine who constantly had shade sunglasses on, but they were wired into her head.
Yeah.
Which is how I read that is like, oh, it's like she has glasses just sewn into her skin. But I guess really what it's supposed to be is like the lenses of her eyes are covered with mirrors. But I just read it as somebody wearing like those.
Oh, yeah, like just type in a character from this book and hit Google Images, and you'll see like like 20
Right.
different interpretations of what
I
that's
never
supposed to
did
mean.
that. Okay. So to me, it's like a state.
Well,
trooper.
because first thing I did was when they talk about the Cobra weapon, like he couldn't get a gun. It's like, here's a Cobra, and it's like something that looks like a pin with a point on it, and then it coils out, and I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. And so I went to Google. It's like, what's this thing supposed to be? And it did not return something that made sense whatsoever.
Basically a springy sap. It's like a sap if it had a spring handle,
Okay.
weighted end on it. That's what I interpreted it as. I never went. Whatever it was wildly ineffective. But oh yeah. Anyway, sometimes when he goes and talks to Wintermute, and it's the simulated react, because the AIs can't really talk to people because they're not people, so they have to use proxies from your past to talk to you. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Wintermute or Neuromancer talk to him. Well, Neuromancer could, but Wintermute couldn't. And so he would have to use proxies from his past. And remember, he shot the one guy and just blew his head off. And Wintermute was like, it's going to take me a long time to create another proxy to talk to you. So please don't do that. Don't freak out. I'm just here to talk to you.
Yeah, because first he like tried to be his ex-girlfriend or departed girlfriend,
Yeah.
but then that was like too close to him, or it caused him to be too mentally unstable. So then he had to do like was it Dean or whatever, that weird guy trying to stay alive.
Yeah, there was the fence and there was a few people, but sometimes in the writing it wasn't clear, like, oh, I must have missed a sentence where he went into the cyberjack and now he's talking to Wintermute, and then I would go back and be like, no, I didn't miss that sentence. We're just here. So yeah.
Well, I remember like that. There's that one scene where like Molly is like invading some bank while some other guys are running a distraction, and Case is in cyberspace,
Yeah.
and it's just all presented at once. And it gives you like this fractal image of like somebody's in a pyramid, some guy's floating around a helicopter, and somebody else is and like and it never like delineates where you are at any time. It's just, now we're here now. It's like, Jesus Christ.
How I think of cyberspace in this world, it helps me to keep it straight in my head, is I always think of cyberspace in the world of Neuromancer as like line drawings, like kind of like the Tron universe. And then there's the real world, because like you said, he doesn't really, when you jump back and forth, he doesn't really, it's not very clear. So I fix that in my mind, and then I can read these just fine. I think of this, whenever I read Neuromancer or any of the books that he's written in this trilogy, I always think of it as like this is like Max Headroom cyberspace to me.
Yeah.
So that way I can
that's how I imagine it, but then there's parts like, oh wait, we're in the real world now. And then like, it's like, imagine somebody wrote a text. Imagine somebody wrote in black ink, red ink, and green ink, and you have those little papers that different shades, so it reveals a different sentence as you put a red and green thing, and you like lift up the page to read the different sentences on the same page. That's what it was like reading this book. You're like, keep like, all right, no, I need to be on green. All right, now taking both off. Now I'm on the same time.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily.
No, that's because I have an overactive imagination, and this is why I listen to audiobooks, because it keeps my mind in check. I will run wild with any idea and sentence if you're just presenting it as is.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is not an easy book to read unless you've read it like 10 times.
Well, also, I think what does a major disservice to this book, and why I probably could have got to it sooner, is like I've read all the stuff that's been influenced by this that is, I would say, wildly better than this.
Clearer than this, yeah.
Like I'd say like Woken Furies kind of has a lot of, it's like, hey, we're hacking shit, we're doing a heist, there's some AI shit. It does all that stuff. But that book even has like implied history that it doesn't bother to delve into, but that's way more clear than this book. And then Altered Carbon is just pretty much Detective Blade Runner, and that's much more clear. There's a comic book called Transmetropolitan that is essentially Blade Runner meets Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like the main character is essentially supposed to be a cyberpunk Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
That's a pretty enjoyable series. What else? Yeah, all that kind of cyberpunk stuff.
Yeah.
You got
But thing with this book though, it's like, yeah, Woken Furies. It's a good. I mean, all those Richard K. Morgan novels draw, just like a lot of things draw off of this. But those are established worlds. When he's writing those books, he can focus a lot more on story.
Yeah,
because established thing. This guy's
because William Gibson laid the bricks that he can then build another story with.
This guy's not only trying to tell a story written under pressure, but it's a weird story, and it's in a weird universe that put yourself in the 1985. How old were you in 1984?
Born
0. So yeah, that's that's when. So that's part of one of the things with this. This book has to be read kind of like people read War of the Worlds. It's like everything, and I mean, read War of the Worlds, not the George Powell movie or the Steven Spielberg. Read War of the Worlds. It's like, oh, these concepts are weird. It's like the they're spraying gas on people and they're walking and then when they shoot the ray gun, it's a box they carry in front of. Okay, it was way ahead of its time, but it was of its time at the same time.
Yeah.
There's, Jules, War of the Worlds is like steampunk. And this is like, that was the first steampunk novel. Everything that came after that, it's like, oh, this is set in kind of everything that claims to be steampunk owes its life to War of the Worlds. It's like, oh, this is a Wells type universe where we have that level of technology, but we're doing amazing things. This is the Gibson universe, where it's like, I think of it as the Tron universe of the future, and everyone else that builds on it is. And William Gibson's not easy to read, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something.
Well,
about
it's like if I had probably spent a longer time reading it rather than cramming it in a week, it probably would have been more enjoyable. Also, like I said, I'm just like I know too many ancillary things about this that I had built up way too much hype for it.
Yeah.
Like anticipating things like a coherent story is a problem. Like, it's just enjoy the universe.
Take the ride. It's a ride.
Punch some deck.
Yeah. Punch into our decks and let's do that. But it's I put William Gibson very much in the family of H.G. Wells. It's like he wrote a novel 30 years ahead of his time. It's fun to read, but it's also goofy at the same time. Yeah, and he cringes at a lot of the accolades he got for this too. He's like, you guys don't know what kind of pressure I was under. I literally crammed this book. Like, it was like I had a deadline. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I just started throwing all this shit out here. Let's see what sticks to the wall. And
then like the Wikipedia article says it didn't really have, its initial reception was pretty warm. Like,
yeah,
it was kind of just became a cult classic over time.
Yeah, it was a future. It was like Blade Runner.
Well, when did you first read it, or when did you first hear about it, or what made you come to it?
I read this in high school, so that would be sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. Is when I first read this, and then I read everything he wrote after that. And to me, back then, it was kind of like late 80s, early 90s. It was like, oh, this whole world's opening in front of us. Like, this could go anywhere. Yeah. I thought this was a pretty coherent interpretation of a lot of weird ideas about what would it be like to have a global spanning computer network. What would it be like to? That was all like stuff that you couldn't really imagine.
Transhumanism stuff, where you're just gonna like start putting shit in your body, is like that makes it better.
Yeah,
swap out a pancreas or get knife hands.
Or you could live on the beach with your girlfriend in a simulation forever. Where food randomly shows up and there's a city in the distance and you walk towards it, but you never get there. It's just like pure computer simulation. Really weird ideas throughout the 80s and early 90s. And then,
and Neuromancer's a really cool fucking name.
Like you said, the naming conventions in this book are cool. He does a good job. He's like Alistair Reynolds with the Light Huggers. He does a real He's really on point with these names. It's like they're bizarre and relatable at the same time. Especially Neuromancer. That's just a cool name.
Yeah.
It's a word that doesn't exist in the English language. There's necromancer, which is a wizard that brings the dead to life, and then there's neurology, which is the study of the brain and how it transmits information. Let's combine those two words together. So it's magic and science, which is what the whole overarching theme of the book was, because AIs are essentially magic. And then I think the people from the two guys that write the Expanse novels, they owe a lot of Belter culture was relayed at the space station they were at with the Rastafarian people that were helping Case at the it's like I read that and I was like, oh, these guys are Belters. These are prototype Belters.
Yeah.
This people that live in space for so long they develop their own weird Rastafari. I mean, these guys were just Rasta guys.
There's the ultra rich that like freeze themselves in a space station.
Yeah.
Wake me up when shit's cool.
Mary 3 Jane and her weird dad and what was her name? I'm saying her name wrong. Yeah, Lady 3 Jane.
Yeah.
Mary France Tessier Ashpool. Ashpool, not Ashpool. And then the fact that you had two AIs that were essentially the same thing. You had Wintermute and Neuromancer, and then you had the police, the Turing cops that were, there was locks on the police where. I'm sorry. There were locks on the AI so they couldn't become too sentient, which is, again,
was that
considering
the
AIs.
the Turing limiters? Was that
Yeah, they had Turing limitations. So.
There was like weird stuff. It was like, it's not necessarily like, hey, we want to control the AI so they don't kill us. It's like, no, we don't want to give an AI citizenship.
Yeah. They're too useful as slaves. Yeah. But yeah,
I look forward to Cyberpunk 2077 coming out here next year.
Is that a game?
Yeah. I mean, there's Cyberpunk 2020. Well, I think there's Cyberpunk 2020. I believe they're both tabletop RPGs.
Oh.
And so this is a game based on that. Which I heard like the synopsis for that's pretty interesting where like something like nuked the internet.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of intranets like that are like spread out from each other. So there's like a bunch of like different information depending on what area you're in.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like what the internet's. It's like you have Chinese internet and American internet, like you have now.
Yeah, but it's like they're just like not connected because of vague wars.
Yeah.
And there's just a cool like cyberpunk weird lights and transhumanism and robot arms and all the various shit. And it's like I can put a shotgun in my forearm and shit like that. That's gonna be an RPG. It's made by the guys that made the Witcher games. So.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it looks really fucking cool, but we'll see what happens. That car looks really fucking cool.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I think I showed you the trailer last year when it came out, but it didn't come out. The trailer came out. There's another trailer this year for E3 because Keanu Reeves is in the game.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember. That was a big announcement. Keanu Reeves, the internet's favorite boyfriend. Guy's like 54 years old. It's like, this isn't your boyfriend. It's a man well into middle age.
Oh, he's not. He's like abstained from dating for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I mean, you know the fucked up story there, right?
Yeah, with his wife had a miscarriage and they got separated, and then she got in a car wreck after a Marilyn Manson party.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a bunch of sad. He's a sad man, and you can tell he's like, he's got every reason to feel that way.
Yeah, there's also those sad Keanu memes are out there. There's all sorts of Keanu memes.
No, I've never seen them. I just enjoy him for The Matrix, and I enjoy him for Bill and Ted, The Matrix, and now the John Wick films.
Yeah, and Speed. Constantine is highly underrated.
Is that the one where he's like it's the magical afterlife world of angels and demons, and he's like some kind of mitigator for that?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I've ever seen that all the way through. And he's dying, right?
Yeah.
No.
He has. I think because he's a smoker. I think he has like, and I think he like did something with the devil where like the devil's like, come on, Constantine, it's like about time the devil's is due or whatever. And then at some point, in order to talk to angels, he like slits his wrist just to like talk to Gabriel or some shit like that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of weird shit in it because the angels are almost as fucked up and evil as the demons are.
Yeah.
They have their own little.
Well, yeah, because it's not like the angels aren't necessarily actively out there committing crimes against humanity, but they have no hope or ambition for helping humans whatsoever.
Yeah, they're kind of indifferent and kind of doing their own thing, and they're kind of cynical about God because he created humans.
But that's a comic book property too. They get far more into, and it was a TV show too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think it only lasted like 2 seasons. I hear it was okay, but I never bothered to go back and actually watch it.
Anyway, Keanu Reeves, he should have played Case in the Neuromancer adaptation.
Yeah, that movie was supposed to have been made like 30 times. The Deadpool guy, Tim Miller, he was supposed to make it like last year, but I guess he hopped onto the Terminator movie instead. So
Okay, good luck.
It's another block to Neuromancer getting made.
They don't need to make Neuromancer into a movie. I'm going to go on record saying that right now. It's what it is. You'll fuck it up if you make it into a movie because it's really an 80s product. And you can modernize it and make it look all cool for now, but don't, because it is perfect as is. It won every science fiction, or I think it's one of the few novels that won every sci-fi award the year it was published.
Yeah.
I don't think
won like the Hugo, Saturn, and whatever else one there was.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones that won. So yeah, I really would be disappointed if I heard they were making this into a movie.
I mean, it's tried several times, and like I said, Johnny Mnemonic got turned into a movie.
Yeah,
also with Keanu Reeves.
The only good thing about that was Keanu Reeves' kind of weird performance.
Well,
indifferent performance, and had a lot of cool ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of just weird. There's like a talking dolphin with like a laser and shit, and there's a fucking, was it Ice-T is like a Rastafarian computer hacker. That was the first time like they did that they did like that visualization of cyberspace. Like people were in awe about how they did that. Now it looks like fucking
90s schlock.
Yeah, remember Lawnmower Man? Remember like, oh, look at these graphics, and like you look at it now, it's like, who turned on the Nintendo 64 game?
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, Neuromancer doesn't need to be made into a movie.
I don't think I ever like went back and watched Johnny Mnemonic, but I remember kind of like holding that in the same way like Tank Girl. Like Tank Girl's a fun movie, but it's wholly stupid.
Yeah,
but it has a style to it that's endearing.
Same production company that made both those, I think, because they look similar.
Yeah,
Tank Girl and Johnny Mnemonic can run together in your mind. But wasn't Ice-T some kind of weird kangaroo?
Yeah, it was a kangaroo soldier.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, it all works. One way or another.
But in the novel, Molly Millions, or short story, Molly Millions was in Johnny Mnemonic, but she is not in the movie version of Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, okay.
They have some other character be her stand-in.
Yeah, in the Sprawl trilogy, all these characters come back, but they're just like brief characters.
Okay.
None of the characters hook up in the Sprawl trilogy and really do things. They're just like, because the trilogy takes place, I think it's over a 20-year arc.
Huh.
Between and a lot of people say Count Zero is the best book of the Sprawl trilogy, so might be worth looking into for you. I don't know.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Like I said, I think I had too much anticipation going in, but I will investigate further.
Count Zero might have a better audiobook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can check that out. A lot of books I read in the past, I will only read. I won't listen to the audiobooks because if I read them as a kid, I'm going to read them as an adult. But a lot of things, it's like, yeah, I'll just listen to the audiobook. Because
Well, I specifically didn't with this because there's 2 versions on Audible, and both of them have terrible ratings.
yeah,
So like I was like, why am I gonna spend like nearly $15 for a terrible reading of Neuromancer when I can get it for like $4 on Amazon?
yeah. I don't. The only audiobooks I listen to are ones of like really dense topics. I'll do audiobooks because I'm usually building models as I'm listening to them. So it's like, oh, this is hand in glove with what I'm doing. So I can.
Yeah, I usually listen to nonfiction and science fiction. That's
Yeah.
my 2 audiobooks go to.
I'm listening to a book about the Nordhausen and the construction of the V2 rocket, which is like 54 hours long. Just like, yeah, I'm gonna know everything I ever wanted to know about the V2 rocket and German slave labor camps for building the V2 rocket by the time I'm done. But I wouldn't read that because it's like just 700 pages. Which,
And I still got that S book I need to read, which that's a book that can basically only be read.
yeah, that's cool. I still have that. It was a cool idea. I don't know if I'd revisit. If someone's like came out with another one of those, I wouldn't buy it. But I'm glad I had that experience.
Yeah.
Um,
What if
But
an
it-
escape room was a book?
yeah. But anyway, Neuromancer, check it out. Bring your patience.
Or ingest some drugs.
Or yeah, take a lot of what would be a good drug?
Join the author. I wouldn't know. I'd say just mushrooms, I guess.
Pot, mushrooms. Can you read on that stuff?
I mean, you'll have an experience.
See, I can read and retain on booze. I learned that from Hemingway. But I can't read and retain. Well, I've never really done any other drugs regularly. So I don't know. I'm not a drugs person. I feel like my life is incomplete because of that. I need to dive into not narcotics, but what
Yeah,
was
I
it?
like how Case is just like various forms of a drug addict. It's like he gets injected with this thing that won't let him get on the internet or cyberspace, and it's like slowly killing him and making him like paranoid and almost getting himself killed. And then as soon as they like swap his shit out, it's like, all right, it's as soon as like he wakes up from surgery, he's like, I need to punch some dick, and then like, no, you can't go on the internet, you'll fucking die. And then like he goes to space and it's like, I need some drugs, so I'll get around this whole new organs thing.
Yeah, I need the beta minofaxidrine or something. Oh, and this book has what does it have that would move it into almost X-ray? Oh yeah, like weird spontaneous sex.
Yeah, I had no. I have no idea. When he started having sex with Molly Millions, I had no idea why. Like, what led to that relationship? It's like he seemed just like getting over his dead girlfriend. And it's like, all right, we're in a new relationship. Is this a relationship? I don't know.
Yeah. And then you find out she used to be a virtual prostitute, but not in the sense of like she checked out and was just using her body as a virtuality. It's like, no, she checked out of her body and they used her body for kinky S&M shit, and that's how she afforded her surgery to get razor knives and weird glass eyes, and that was a whole like dark tunnel this went down.
There's a weird thing with the one dude, Rivera, where he was like doing a play where she like slices his back open and there's doing something weird with her head. And then like I was like, am I reading this right? And then like at some point it's like, why'd they do that? And then like it's like, oh, it's a drug fueled thing. That's his art and whatever.
Yeah, he's a drug addict. And yeah, they had some very memorable characters in this, like the bodyguard samurai Hideo,
Finn.
Ben the fencer, who was also Wintermute's proxy for Case to talk to, and then you had Neuromancer, whose proxy was a 12-year-old Brazilian kid. And they both said, "We're gonna die if you achieve your mission, but we'll be free then. We'll die and be free." It's like,
What were the name of the cigarettes? Like Yahooians or some shit?
yeah, that's some weird Japanese name, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, this movie's very heavily influenced by Japanese stuff, because the Yakuza are like they're the overarching criminal / do-all guys, or it's like they're, fences, bodyguards, criminals, but then some of them are like white dudes that are in the Yakuza. It's like, oh, I didn't think that happened, but I guess this is the future. So
Yeah.
anything's possible. The Yakuza they franchised.
And the Yakuza are aging out, so they needed to import some Yakuza.
Well, you don't know in this book whether they're like, there's no like cultural touchstones in this book. This is just what they're calling people.
Yeah.
Like, they could have, this is also like the generic term we have now is like the Russian mob. It's like, well, they're not necessarily Russians, just like people from Eastern Europe that engage in organized criminal activities. We call that the Russian mob in America, because everyone's Russia who's from that part of the world, even though there's like whole different cultures and languages and everything there. I mean, it's like a lot of the Chernobyl stuff I was reading. It's like, I can't believe the Russians did this, and they left this, and it's like, well, no, it's the Ukrainians. It's where it actually happened. The Russians were running it, but a lot of people don't seem to understand. Like, that's a different language.
Yeah.
They don't care. Remember, people got panicked when the Russians invaded Georgia in the early 2000s. It's like, what? Is Atlanta safe? It's like, no. There's another place called Georgia outside of America. It's a country. Doesn't have Atlanta. But
What's that name of that? What was it, an island or whatever? That was the name of a ship in the Alien video game.
Island, that was the name of a ship in the Alien video.
It was like the first thing that the Russians were like trying to take back. Fuck.
Oh, you mean Alien Isolation?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what was that place called? Sevastopol?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's some interesting history with Sevastopol.
Oh yeah. Well, any of those Russian cities, especially that had a large part to play in the Second World War, it's always like, that's an amazing story in a field of corpses. A mountain of corpses. Well, that's all I have for Neuromancer. Is there any other questions or any concepts or ideas?
No, not right now.
All right. Let's go to sleep.
All right.
This week for the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Colin. Goodbye, America.